Welcome back to the Notes in the Garden podcast. I'm Jeff Spickard, the president of Musikgarten. I'm here with Amy Rucker, who it looks like probably just finished teaching the class. Is that right, Amy?
I did, actually, yes. So welcome to my floor, where I've been all morning.
And Ellen Johansen. How are you doing today, Ellen?
Oh, doing really well. I have a day off today, but this studio has been really busy with toddler classes, cycles classes, keyboard classes, and it's been a week full. So.
Wow, sounds like you've been busy. Now, I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. I'm going to set a timer for us because we're going to try to keep this to 30 minutes today. So here you go. Timer is set. Now, today's topic, we're going to discuss setting the families up for success in an online world. So how do we do that today with Musikgarten classes, So let's, the first thing we had down, first bullet point we had was setting the home music environment. So Ellen, let's kick it off.
All right, so as you all know, when we had our in-house classes, we could control the environment. We can close the door. We can empty that room of toys and distractions, and we can put all of our instruments out of reach of the toddler. But now that we're in our online format, although my classroom's still set up this way, their homes are not. And so from the very, very get-go, we the teacher have to educate families on how to set up a home environment that will be conducive to a music class in their home. Because remember, our primary goal is to keep this program going and to keep it educational and not as just another Zoom distraction in their home. So we have been thinking this through, and through experience as well. We have been looking to see what works and what doesn't. And so I'll take the first one, and the first thing that we're going to tell our parents is we've got to create a room that is distraction-free. And we have found out playrooms are not the best place. Rather, a room where things are still out of reach, free of toys, free of food, free of coffee tables, free of climbable furniture, and has a door that they can close. And we've got to let the parent know that this is really going to be the optimal setting for an oral-based music class. Any comments, Amy, that I might have left out?
Oh no, I love everything you said. I agree. They need it to be as distraction-free as possible. Maybe just find the most boring room in your house, and that's the room that they should use for their classes. One of my parents uses their guest room, and it just doesn't have anything in it, and I think that that's been a wise choice. So I totally agree. Keep it clutter-free and distraction-free.
Now, sometimes a family can't do this because either they're in an apartment, or I have a family with 4 children and it's a tiny house, and you can see that every single part of that house is functioning as something. And yet even that family has figured out a way to literally the camera's here, and then you see you've got almost a bowling alley of freed area. They just moved everything out of the way, and so that they can go in and out and they can sit down on the floor. I know that it takes effort for that parent to do it, but she values the classes, and she knows that her toddler is going to benefit from not having too many things distracting that toddler.
So defining the space also helps. I agree with that completely. Sometimes it could just be a rug, and then that way you can tell them, oh, don't forget, you have to stay on your rug. So yeah, anything to define that space.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and coming from a parent's point of view whose children are taking online classes, including Musikgarten classes, we try to do it in the same space every time. That way it's the usual thing, it's not something that we're always shuffling around and stuff like that. And we do use our den. There are couches in our den, but there is no there is no coffee table. It's a nice open rug area, and we do have a little table that we can set the computer up so that we can see what the teacher's doing and follow along, and it still gives us enough room for movement, whether it's two of us or all four of us in there doing it. So yeah, good clean space is what you're really looking for, right?
Absolutely. And we're also being really clear that the classes, at least for the toddler and the cycles class, and music makers too, that we are doing it on the floor. And so I have to orient the teacher to orient, no, I'll say that again. We want the teacher to remind the parents to get on the floor. And you know, that sounds so easy, but it's not. So in my toddler class the other day, and this is the second week, yeah, my more experienced parents were on the floor, but I still have a parent who's sitting back on a big armchair while the child is running around. And so I'm going to have to find a way to gracefully and gently ask him to come a little closer, maybe create a special floor place, and I've got to create that floor space that's closer. Of course, I have to work within reason. If that parent is unable to get to the floor, in my studio, I would have given them a chair, but at the very least, then let's get them on a chair closer to, so that they can get up and down and they can move around, and they're not sitting on a comfy couch.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and for sure we want to have the child on the floor. So even if the adult, right, if they cannot get to the floor, the main goal, you get that child on the floor. I completely agree. And you can also further define the area by, I like to have, especially for my older students, cycles and above, have like a placemat, like a cotton placemat that I put in the middle of my floor, and I invite them to do the same, because that can be a point of reference for us. It can be something that we can dance around. It could be a boat that we go get in for, sail a little boat along. We can rock on that and then get up and blow with the wind and come back to that mat. That's been a really nice way to define that area.
Yeah. Another big problem area for parents is the placement of the camera or the computer or the iPad or whatever machine they're using to bring it in. And although that's part of another part that we're going to talk about, that as well as other things need to be out of reach of the toddler's hands. So there's nothing like teaching class and suddenly you see that toddler and you realize, uh-oh, and then you see the no, and you know what's going to happen. Poof, they're gone, and you realize, uh-oh, okay, that wasn't a good place for that camera. Yeah. So parents are going to figure this out, but you'd be amazed. That can happen week after week after week, and it just doesn't hit them that, gee, maybe I should put it out of reach of the toddler hand. So we teachers have to remind parents from the very beginning, you got to think that one through. Think it through.
All right, so I think that's some good suggestions there for the parents. Anything to add, Amy?
No, sounds
all right,
good.
so we've got our space set up. We're feeling good about the space. What about the materials? What kind of materials do they need to have?
Well, I think that's something you set up at the beginning of the semester. What might they like to have on hand? Are they able to purchase materials through Musikgarten? That's been the lifesaver for many of my classes, where the children have the bag and they've got the materials ready to go. So I think that those things that they've gathered, whether they're sticks that are wooden spoons or they're tubs that are oat containers that make nice drums, all of that works. Things that they can shake that make a shaker sound, like spices or some other box or container, they can use those as well. And I think those need to be at the ready. They should be either out of reach if they're toddlers and off to the side and then brought down by the parent, or they can be off to the side for an older child who knows, oh, my materials are going to be right here and I just have to reach over at the right time and use those and then also put them back. What do you do, Ellen?
I was just having a thought about that. As you were talking, it occurred to me that one of the issues, I use a basket, and I encourage the parents to have a basket with all of the toys, all of the musical instruments in the basket. But we're back to the problem that if they pull that basket down, that toddler's not going to just pull out the sticks. They're going to pull out the bells and the scarves and anything else that they impulsively want to grab. So it occurred to me, why not have 2 baskets or 2 containers, one container that is out and another container where the parent can quickly take what we're using, put it into there, and then bring it down like we do in class, where it only has sticks or things that you can hit, and then leave it up to the toddler to choose either the 2 sticks or the 2 wooden spoons, or if they have a variety of shakers. And then, of course, the part of the ritual would be to put it back and then move those back into the main basket. It's a little more work for the parent, but I think in the long run we're going to have a cleaner music class when it comes to that ritual of taking things out and putting things away. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. I try to give my parents a heads up what they're going to need for a specific class, if I can. So that's exactly what you're saying. Make that a part of just getting prepared for that class, and have a class basket of materials.
Exactly.
And your larger basket that holds everything.
Holds everything. And
I think that's a great idea. Yeah,
I'm going to put it in my checklist to do next time.
I like that. And I also like to make sure that they have enough instruments that the adult in the room can also have instruments to play, so that that's a participation thing that brings them into the moment, so they're not just off to the side while the child is playing with the sticks, but they're both doing that together, and they're continuing to model playing the sticks just as they do in an in-person lesson.
Right. And because I've included this time, all of my classes now get an instrument bag. And in the beginning I was thinking, well, this summer they all got instrument bags, and by the way, the instrument bags have 2 sets of sticks. Mm-hmm. And 2 bells, so they can share the bells, although I probably would put 2 more bells in there. I just like children doing this. And 2 scarves, although again, they like 2 scarves. So that, they can always add to that, or they can buy 2 instrument packets. That's fine. But I'm thinking, well, yeah, when the fall hits, I'm including that instrument bag again. Why not have multiple sets of instruments? Number one, you're assuming that they're not going to get lost. And there's always a sibling hanging out who wants to do it too. So have multiple sets. Just make it part of the home material fee. And there it is. It's really not that much money to add on to have a better online music experience. So just
I agree, and I agree with that completely. And I also always stress to the parents that the quality of the materials is so high that it's an investment, and they'll be able to have these instruments for years and years to come. So I like to show off my baby's bag that was my son's, and he's 20. So, I still have the original sticks from that. I mean, they're in great shape.
So, well, and one thing, both of you, it seemed like it reinforces what you would normally done in class, which is, Ellen used the word ritual, the ritual of going to the basket to get the instruments, and then the ritual of putting the things back. Seems like you're following that same type of guideline online, or however you're doing it, So.
Yeah, it's been my experience that if I stay as close to not only the curriculum or the lesson plan before me, which it works fine online as well as on the floor here, I also want to keep those rituals as well as the pacing the same. And I also don't want to be arguing, and not that I'm going to argue with my parents, but it is hard when everybody's doing this and there's a child in the background doing this, and then all of a sudden they go into the box and all of a sudden they're doing something else, and all of a sudden you realize you've lost that child. They're not engaged. They're into, look at all these wonderful all over the floor. And so ritual is essential.
Well, we're our time. Wow, setting a timer is tough. So time is ticking away. So this one is not normally a thing that you do in class, but you have something. Amy had one that was choose a friend. Can you explain that, Amy?
Yes, I think that it has been really helpful for my little ones to find a friend to bring to their class, such as my friend is Mr. Bear, and he comes with me to class because I use him to demonstrate, that we're swinging our arms for Billy Billy, or we're doing Zoom Golly Golly, but also just makes it, I think, a fun thing for the children to do, to think that they can choose a friend for each class. And that way they have somebody that they can rock. So if they're rocking, they can rock this way with their little friend. They can do a dance with their friend. I think just it helps to keep them engaged. It gives them something to bring the activity to them, to make it an engaging time for them. I had a couple of students who, the young toddlers who sat and watched passively for a while. And then when I introduced the idea of, but you can do this with a friend, that seemed to get them up and moving more. It just got them more engaged. And of course, they always have the grown-up to also do these things with too, but I think this just brings another element that just makes it fun.
I also think it works because it's in their own home. It doesn't work in the classroom setting because I'm sure you've all experienced, or maybe not, where one child will bring in a friend and suddenly the whole class is about my friend, you can't touch him. And of course the other child is standing over it like, when's my turn?
Right.
That's not going to happen in the online class. So yeah, why not invite? And by the way, I haven't mentioned it, but those friends are coming anyway. The children just bring them. It's part of their life. It's part of their home. It kind of sets up their space. And what I usually say is, oh, you brought a friend. Do you have a name for your friend? Can we say hello to your friend too? And invite that friend into the class.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. So we always have to deal with this crazy thing called a camera. The more I do these podcasts, the more I do, Zoom video things or whatever video things I'm doing, staring at that camera and operating the camera, where's it going to be set up, all that good stuff. Well, for the classes, I'm sure it's a bit of a challenge, right? So how do we deal with it?
Amy, you do it while I get some examples. Go ahead.
Well, you're referring to how we're encouraging the parent to get the camera set up.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
Because there's our setup, which is a whole other conversation, and then there's the parent setup. So I think Ellen touched on it earlier. I think
this is what they may have.
Small because they won't be able to see. I actually have one family that uses an HDMI cord, so they pull it up on their computer, attach the HDMI, and I'm large screen on a TV for them, and it's so helpful because they can hear really well and they can see. I think that's sort of the ultimate, and we want to encourage them. Again, I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but just to get a full view of where the child's going to be, and so that you can see them tapping. You can see them when they're playing their instruments. You can see them when they stand up and move around the room. And there are a few parents who are really getting this down because it's pretty complicated to get that full view. So the camera has to be far enough away, or the children know to come up close. So my Music Makers kids, they have it set up so that they know, when we're doing close-up work, we come up here and they put their things on a hassock, and then they show me cards, right? But when it's time to move, they get up and they go back to their rug and they're moving around. So it works quite well.
Yeah. One aspect that a lot of parents have to also grapple with is that we don't want the toddler touching the camera or the screen. And so they will have to put it high enough. But the problem when it's high, and I have my camera right now on the top of a piano, and so like if they're 6 feet away, high up, they're going to look really tiny back here. Mm-hmm. See? But if I get them closer, then I can't see their knees. So now, and if I get them closer, then they're doing something like this. So what do? Well, they take their camera. I'll take my iPad, and so they will put it like onto a chair, right? So that looks really good until the toddler comes over and starts to play with it, and then they realize, and then you see what we call the crazy camera scene, And so I haven't yet figured out how to get that camera to be high enough. Perhaps the parent has a webcam and they can adjust it and they can get it so that the child isn't able to touch it. But we have to realize that most people are going to be limited to either a desktop or a full computer. And well, what have you found, Amy, to help them?
Yeah, that's a concern. Typically, for the toddler level and cycle of seasons, what's worked best is if they have the camera set up with the children on the floor. It's usually, I'm picturing these siblings, and they're sitting together on the floor, and you can see their legs and their bodies. And then when they get up and dance, I just see the bottom half of them moving around and dancing, and I'm actually fine with that. And sometimes they know if they need to come up to the camera to say something to me, they will, and then they go back. But that seems to have worked well. So that's one thing for the younger set. For my music makers, I mentioned that these twins I have, they have a hassock, and that's come in handy because they can actually play their instruments up there. So they have a little glockenspiel, and they can put it on a hassock. I can see really well what they're doing. And if I need them to be tapping, they're just sitting just beyond that hassock, and it's just a good enough angle that they can sit on the floor and be doing something here, and I can see what they're doing with their hands. They can also get up and move in the room. So having a level where that's in at least the view of the teacher might be helpful for the older children.
Yeah, older children, especially if we're dealing with keyboard. I had one parent who I heard her have an aha moment with the camera, because she had her camera so that she could see the keyboard and the child was there. And then I of course said, hey, let's get up so we can do bim bam. And I heard her, she went, oh, look at that. I only had to do that. And you could see the floor. And it was like, yeah, she only had to turn it. She didn't have to lift it up and reset it. It was just a little flip turn. And I was like, oh, yeah, I figured that one out in the first month in March. But now it's like second nature. Now when we're doing it, it's like, okay, let's go to the piano. Okay, let's go to the floor. Okay, well, I want a little more. And I want to, I'm learning to use one camera and just do a Mr. Rogers, just keep moving it around. And I'm inviting parents and telling them, reminding them, try to limit moving it, just maybe an adjustment here and there.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think flexibility is the key, and the parents are going to probably just continue to do their best, and we can just keep encouraging them and just having a joyful time together.
That's the whole key. The stuff that's getting in the way. Yeah. But once we stop allowing it to get in the way, and we just express the joy and the fun of dancing and jumping, and there's nothing like a Tuesday morning at 10 in the morning, and what are we doing? We are galloping. Isn't that fun? And getting imagine you've got people in their house doing these things. Right. It's magical.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and Amy, you took away what I was going to say. Is you want it to be joyful, you want it to be fun, and you're not looking for perfection. You're just looking for people to pay attention. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Nope.
So we got some more things on our bullet point list here. Obviously, there's some things that children would usually do before they come to your class in person. Those same rules probably still apply. Using the bathroom before you come to class, making sure they've had a snack, and making sure a snack doesn't come with them to the class, because you wouldn't want that in your in-person class, and you obviously don't want that kind of disruption either in an online class. Probably mainly for the fact that they're not paying attention to you at that time. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also hands-free.
Yeah.
And if they're hungry, then they're not going to pay attention. Give them some food before. Yes, we do have constant snacker toddlers. I do get it. And I did watch a toddler eat a green bean the whole class. And if that's going to keep that toddler going, you're not going to press the point, right?
Yeah.
But for the majority of it, you ask them at least try to get the food handled so that this is just a music time.
Yeah, and it does free up their hands and it frees up their voice and their mouth. And we also want them to be safe. So I know I watched a toddler this morning with an apple in her mouth for the first, 10, 15 minutes of class. But that became, my issue was, well, first of all, you can't sing. But second of all, we have to be safe. And singing with food, we know that that's not a good combination. So,
yeah. All right, so what else we got here? We got making sure other family members know that this is not a time to come bother you.
Yeah. If they're in an apartment, especially so, and they're trying to do multitasking in that room, there's nothing like singing along with the sound of water in the backyard, in the back as they're clanging dishes. I mean, they're trying to do a good thing, but I almost want to say, save the dishes, come join us in the music class. So the rule is, if you come into the room, you've come into the room to join the music class. And so that also means you can't come in with the phone. No texting during class. What other things? No notifications, and that's especially on the camera they're using. There's nothing worse than you see them all of a sudden it goes blank because a phone call came in, or you hear the da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and you realize they didn't turn off the notifications. So it does take a little bit of advanced thinking, which is, asking the parents a lot, but we are trying to provide this high-quality moment.
Yeah.
And that includes, you're in the room, you participate.
Yeah. You kind of the same way, Amy?
Yes, I agree completely with all of those things. I haven't had a whole lot of disruptions in my class in that way, except for that one that you're mentioning where the phone call comes in and the notifications are on. Suddenly we're all listening to her ringtone and we were all laughing about it, and it was the funniest moment because she was diving for her device to try to get it to stop. She was mortified. So yeah, we just want to encourage the parents and, like you said, Ellen, try to just set up the best experience possible. So we just little reminders here and there, and then just flexing with it when it goes wrong.
Yeah, and this is also helping when we orient the parent this way, and we do this, by the way, through a orientation meeting, which I've put on YouTube just as a sample. Although I have to say it's very raw, and I would do it differently every single time. It gets better and better. It helps the parent become more mindful of this being a live experience. Unlike turning on television and then going, got to think, they've got this mindset, screen time, go do something while they're occupied. And we're changing that to screen time, time to participate with my child, time to dance with my child, time to sing with my child, time to cuddle with my child, time to give them 100% time. And right now in our culture, that's not what screens are telling us. It's the opposite. So we have to reorient that parent so that this becomes a very important part of their morning or afternoon.
Right. It's active screen time, and I think that's the thing we need to stress to teachers as well as to the parents. It's not passive screen time, the screen time that we know it as, it's active. And it's almost to the point where we're so many weeks into doing this, around week 18, whatever we're on, that I almost don't even think of it as screen time anymore. Like those words don't really enter into my perception. It's almost like when you're teaching a class and you just get those blinders on and all you see is that core group of kids in front of you and what they're doing, and you kind of don't see the periphery. It's almost that kind of a sense with the Zoom lessons. It's really becoming this engaged moment, and I feel like the parents are getting that as well.
Yeah, you'll see them actually looking over to the other box, Like, and so how's your pregnancy going? Or, or wow, you have that 5-month-older in your hand. That happened the other day. I have this great cycles class of 2, but these 2, both mothers have just had another baby. And so going out is just not happening for them. And so this is their chance to connect with another mother who's going through the same thing. Now, they've worked it out that it's during the baby's nap times. So it's been great. Yet last Tuesday, one of the babies woke up, so she put the baby in a holder. And yeah, we all went really close, like, could we see? And it became this little enclosed special moment. It wasn't screen time, it was connection time.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Well, that segues beautifully into what we were going to discuss for a little bit here was, conveying to the parent, the value of this class. We know the value of it, of the in-person. But the way that we're trying to do things is very much like the in-person experience. And like you said, this is active screen time. It's purposeful screen time. It's not just sitting around watching a movie or whatever else. So what are some ideas of ways and also things that we could say to parents to convey that it's not just adding another screen thing to your day. It's still an educational, purposeful, movement-based activity, and music-based activity. I need to say that too, don't I?
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right, exactly. We really do need to convey the value. We want to continue our studios, and we want them to thrive, and we want to reach more people. But we need these parents to know why they're coming back. And I think one of the first things we talked about, communication is key. And for us, between the lessons, to convey to the parents, what were the concepts that we just sort of were able to experience? What were the things that we saw in their child that showed some real engagement and maybe some progression on a concept? What did they do really well this time, or what they really were, getting up and using their whole body, just anything that you can do to encourage not only their child's participation, how great they did, or what was one significant thing that happened with that child in that class that week, but also conceptually, from the educator standpoint, where are we in our curriculum? What have we just accomplished? And so I think that's a good way to start. Do that, some sort of communication in between the classes to just clue them into those ideas.
Yeah, and that could either be an email. It could be class notes that are generated out of a program like My Music Staff or Music Teacher's Helper. It could be a phone call. There's nothing wrong with connecting by phone. But all of these ways, just to say, yeah, this is something that's going to keep, we're seeing cumulative progress.
Right.
And the parents need to see that to want to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
It's like in our minds, we always have that pathway to music literacy in our minds. That's always there. It's like it never goes away. And where does a child fit in on that pathway to literacy? And we need to let the parent know this is where they are and this is where we're headed. Something else I've recently been doing with my classes is giving them sort of the roadmap that's coming up. Maybe something as simple as, the next 4 classes, we're going to be finishing this book. And that means that in the next class after that, we're going to go to this level. And this is what's going to happen. We're building on this. And just give them that long-range plan that you have in your head so that they also think long-term.
Yeah, absolutely. We also, now I also will add replays, and of course Zoom you can record very easily, and then it takes effort on my part. I do have to get it onto YouTube unlisted, and then I have to share the link, but I can then encourage the parents, it's a rainy day, you can put it on and you can watch or participate again, and you might even see things you didn't notice the last time what your child did. That's kind of interesting. It also helps bring the familiarity. Of course, they don't have to do any of that. They can just put on their CD.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah. Or their recorded music.
Yeah. Yeah, whether it's a CD or digital download, listening to that recording throughout the week multiple times, yeah, that's the biggest benefit, you know, and moving to it too. You know, there's so many, because you're modeling dances, you're modeling all these things in the classes. They can do that. They can free dance. They can free move to it. A lot of my personal experience with my kids is, since I'm usually at work, I didn't get to go to classes. So my time with them was putting on the recording and spending time with them doing that, from anywhere from, you know, doing the canoe song, you know, with both of them. One of us would start and then all of us would join in. It became a game, to with my daughter with keyboard, helping her figure out new songs, you know. And we're doing this in a very small space where my practice keyboard is, and wiggling around on the ground to figure out a song, you know, learning. I can't remember the exact which exact song it was, but you know, it was teaching staccato and legato and everything else. So we would do that. We would practice the moves through movement, practice those concepts through movement first, and then she could go over to the piano, and she understood what staccato was by doing that. She understood what legato was by doing that. It's amazing, you know. It's just taking the time to do it. But it's focusing on those recordings, you know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, as you were talking, it made me realize that the recordings are actually the connection between us and the children, and they're in the experience, because, you know, we are separated right now because we're online, but via the recordings, we're actually very connected. And I'm sure we've all seen it. When you start singing a song that they know because of the recordings, they're instantly plugged in, they're instantly participating, and maybe even showing some of the things that they've been doing at home with that recording. So it's the glue, really, for us.
Yeah, and you know that when the family is together, I got a text from a family which said, Asher can't wait for his class today, and he particularly can't wait to sing Wild Horses. It was like, oh, thank you for that information. So yeah, there it was. And of course we did See the Pony as well, because you never know, they get them, you know, mixed up sometimes. No, he knew it was Wild Horses that he wanted to do. He wanted to do that stamp on the ground now. And not only that, he wanted to bring his brother in. And now normally his brother wouldn't have been part of an in-house class. His brother wouldn't have been there. He would have been at some other program. But no, they were having a great time. Oh, they also wanted to do drum some because they wanted to show off their drums. And so great heads up. And I'm tempted to even say to parents a little ahead of time, you know, tell me ahead of time, what is your favorite piece this week? You know, maybe we can make sure that it's included. Sometimes when you ask them right in class, they kind of like, but if you give them a little notice, you know, oh, you know, that one piece keeps popping up. They keep singing that one piece. That's the piece we're going to add to this week.
Yeah. Yeah, it really, the recordings really make it more of a family event, you know, doing those things. I think we covered it all for today.
Wow.
And we did it in pretty good time for us. So, thank you both again for taking this time. I'll let the teachers know we are going to try to include some things in our show notes. We're looking at like a parent checklist that you can use to help you with setting up your online classes and for parent orientation. And then also some things for you as a teacher, things that you need to think about for your studio, another checklist for you. Also, we get a lot of questions about Zoom. We'll have a slight Zoom tutorial kind of checklist thing, just some basics. And then we have a couple YouTubers out there who actually teach Zoom. We'll include a video of that. for you to check out some things, hopefully to help you as much as possible. Thank you so much for joining us for the Notes in the Garden podcast. I'm Jeff Spickard, and I hope you have a great day.